Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Support comes from the University of Alaska College Savings Plan, helping you and your child save for college every step of the way, from diapers to diploma. More information at uacollegesavings.com.
The National Weather Service.
Hello, welcome to the Wednesday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is March 23rd, 2016. When we're not here, you can always check out our information by going to www.arh.noaa.gov, or you can simply call our 1-800 line at 1-800-472-0391. As always, if you're on the internet, feel free to check out our information via the Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube feeds, and that's available through our social media page. In just a moment, we'll be on to your aviation, public, and marine forecasts. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to start out with some weather headlines, what you can look forward to across the state as we head into the middle of the week. Now, we're going to see freezing rain. I'm going to step off the screen here so I can read these to you. And here we are. We start out with the freezing rain across the Kuskokwim Delta, and that's going to be occurring tonight into tomorrow afternoon. And then you have the rain developing on Friday across South Central and the Gulf areas. Now, we're also going to see snow continuing across the north and northwestern areas of the state. And we'll see also increasing clouds and showers across the southeast after several days of having very nice clear breaks in the skies and lighter winds. Now, looking at the hazards as we head into tonight across the Kuskokwim Delta, we're expecting some freezing rain to develop, and this is from 1 a.m. through 1 p.m. on your day Thursday. And this is for freezing rain accumulations, possibly up to 0.2 of an inch. So be careful if you're in those areas, because traveling conditions will get hazardous during the overnight to tomorrow afternoon. Now here's a look at the upper level weather system satellite this afternoon. I'm going to go ahead and spin that in motion, and you can see where the brightness of the white clouds are stretching across the southern areas of the Gulf on over to the southwest. Actually is increased cloud cover across the northern areas of the Gulf, as well as a front had pushed up earlier in the day. And then across the central areas of the state, they had cleared out through the afternoon hours, and then saw some breaks in the clouds across the northern coast. However, they're still under some cloud cover. A warmer air mass has nudged well out through the Pribilof Islands here, with the darker clouds out to the west. This is indicative of some colder air mass that's along the western areas of the Bering and the Aleutian chain. Taking a look out to the southeast here, a low pressure system that was centered along the south earlier is beginning to weaken. So putting this into motion, you can see how it's just kind of spinning and almost becomes stationary there along the southeastern areas of the Gulf. Now, the southeast probably had seen the heaviest amounts of rain, probably between 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch in areas by the afternoon hours, and then tapering off from south to north through the afternoon, with another area of rain beginning to work in late afternoon. So here we are today with the occluded front beginning to break up across the northern areas of the Gulf there. We saw rain along this frontal occlusion all the way back through Kodiak Island. Showers this afternoon were developing on the backside of this low as moisture was overrunning the colder air mass along the southwestern areas. Now across the central interior, here's the little break in the clouds, and then along the north and northwest, we still have some windy conditions out of the east to northeast between 20 to 35 miles per hour. So blowing snow conditions across the eastern Beaufort seacoast, and also patchy fog from Barrow on back to the Kotzebue Sound. All across much of the Bering, we saw central to the south areas, we saw some light snow showers continuing along a trough axis that's extending out through the Pribilof Islands. And like I said, across the western areas under the influence of high pressure, rather quiet conditions existing out there today and continuing through the overnight hours. As we head through the overnight hours, here's the freezing rain that you'll want to watch for across the Kuskokwim Delta, developing after midnight. A trough sitting across the southwest will continue to bring rain activity along Bristol Bay, and just to the north along the Yukon, we're going to be seeing some light snow shower activity. We're not expecting any accumulations, maybe just trace amounts up to a half an inch along the Nulato Hills. And then we have another cold front that's going to be approaching, and this is going to be moving into the Bering Strait, bringing a little bit more of a cold surge into the northwestern areas as we head into tomorrow. Now the low pressure system is weakening across the southeast. That's a 996 millibar low during the overnight hours. And we're expecting to see some clearing across south central during the nighttime. However, there is increased cloud cover along that front. So the patchy fog conditions might occur for a short period of time, but once the cloud cover moves up from the northern areas of the Gulf, we should see more of a low cloud stratus rather than fog. However, the patchy fog will continue overnight for the northern coastal areas. Now, as we head into your day on tomorrow, Thursday, remember that the freezing rain is going to be the issue across the Kuskokwim Delta up to 0.2 of an inch. And then we'll also see the troughing staying across the eastern areas of the Bering, and that's going to continue to bring those snow showers. Now we're going to warm up just enough on Thursday to see that rain moving into the eastern areas of the Alaska Peninsula. So mainly across the Alaska Peninsula, there's going to be a mix of rain and snow with temperatures moderating, with this low pressure system just to the south helping nudge in slightly warmer air mass. Also, a mix of rain and snow is expected across the central area of the Aleutians as troughing becomes the dominant pressure type just below the chain. Now the southeast will still continue to see that shower activity, as you saw was heading up late this afternoon, and that's going to continue to push into the northern panhandle. So the northern panhandle will probably see the highest amounts of precip for you tomorrow, for your day on Thursday, up to 1/4 of an inch, and then lighter shower activity around the low pressure center. Also, winds will be changing direction around this low pressure system, becoming from south to north as we head into your day on Thursday. Patchy morning fog across the Copper River Basin is expected, with some light showers along the western areas of the Alaska Range, a mix of rain and snow, and then rain to the south across Bristol Bay. All areas to the north, any precip will fall as snow. As you get north of the Yukon River, we will see temperatures mainly in the ranges below 20 degrees and below along the north and northwestern coasts. They're staying in a little bit cooler pattern with patchy fog continuing. Now, the big changes are really coming on Friday. Low pressure across the Bering and the Gulf waters is going to be widespread, with 3 low centers out there. Now, low pressure will be near the southeast, one approaching from the North Pacific. Now, this looks like quite a bit of precipitation, but it's going to be really light on Friday, as most of it is going to be upper level activity that generates these showers, but all areas should see some precip as we head through the day on Friday. Now, there's a chance for a mix of rain and snow across the Copper River Basin, especially in the higher elevations, as well as the southwestern areas. Mainly snow back from the northeastern Beaufort seacoast back towards the Kuskokwim Delta, with a little bit heavier snow showers near the Seward Peninsula. Nulato Hills will probably see the highest amounts between 2 to 4 inches. Across the western areas of the Bering, still mainly under high pressure, but some showers in between ridging to the north and troughing to the south. They'll keep snow shower activity with a little bit cooler temperature there on your Friday, keeping everything snow from the eastern to the western Aleutians. Alaska Peninsula will still continue to see mainly a mix of rain and snow. And just notice there's really no tight pressure gradients except across the northern areas of the Bering Strait, and on towards St. Matthew Island. So pretty much the northerly flow will be a little bit stronger through those areas, but the winds are going to be a lot calmer than what we've seen in the last week. Now, temperatures this afternoon had risen into the mid 40s to the lower 50s across the Gulf coastal locations, with Palmer seeing 52 this afternoon, and Cordova was up to 51 across the eastern areas. Sitka had gone up to 52 degrees, 53 degrees actually, and then we saw mainly in the mid 40s across the area, with cooler temperatures, a little bit cooler across the interior areas, temperatures only reaching up to 35 degrees there at Fairbanks. Now taking a look north of the Brooks Range, temperatures were quite cool, around 1 to 5 degrees, with the coolest temperatures near Dead Horse, 10 below zero. And then across the Seward Peninsula, they climbed from the single digits into the 20s. And then across the southwestern areas of the state, much warmer temperatures here today in the mid 30s to mid 40s, even across the Alaska Peninsula, seeing up into the mid 30s today. And the central areas of the Bering are starting to warm up into the mid 30s. So that's a little bit warmer than they were yesterday. And the temperatures all across the Aleutian chain locations were in the mid 30s. For your overnight lows, expect temperatures to hover in the lower 30s across the Aleutian chain and the Alaska Peninsula and much of the Bering. And along the southwest, very warm temperatures across much of the area in the mid 30s. But look at, here's the temperatures across the Kuskokwim Delta. That's in the upper 20s. So with that warmer air mass overriding, that's why we're going to see those freezing precipitation amounts accumulate in the overnight hours. Across the central areas of the state, a cool night, but not too terribly bad, in the mid-teens to lower 20s. And then along the southern tier of the state, they're all going to be in the low to mid 30s. Across the southeast, they'll be in the mid to upper 30s for the most part. And then across the northern areas of the state, anywhere from 0 to minus 10 degrees is a good average as you head back towards the the Seward Peninsula, where that rise in temperatures there into the mid 20s across the southwest. Now, looking at your high temperatures tomorrow, a warm day for the most part. We'll see some cloud shielding overnight, so that's why we're not going to see very cold temperatures tonight along the southern areas of the state, and then back up into the low to mid 40s across the southern areas of the state, with possible 50s in areas across the southeast. And then along the north and northwest coast, we'll see those temperatures just below zero, with a cooler air mass nudging in. Warmer temperatures for the Bering and Alaska Peninsula tomorrow in the upper 30s to lower 40s. Looking at your flying weather for tomorrow, MVFR conditions still across much of the Bering and along much of the Gulf, with IFR conditions a concern across the central areas of the Bering. And look out for MVFR conditions across the southeast during the morning hours. As we head into the afternoon, the southeast should see some improvement. However, new low pressure developing across the eastern areas of the Bering is going to cause some IFR conditions during the afternoon hours. So here's your passes in depth. We're seeing Anatuvik and Adigan Pass both VFR tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass will be VFR going to MVFR. And we'll see Rainy VFR to MVFR. And also Windy will be VFR to MVFR during the day. Isabel Pass will be VFR, and so will Mentasta. Tanita will be VFR as well. Conditions will go from VFR to MVFR for Portage, and Chilkoot and White Pass will both be VFR during the day tomorrow. Now, tomorrow morning's freezing levels, once again, across the southern areas of the Bering and through the southwest, across the south central locations and back towards the northern areas of the Panhandle. And here's a 2,000-foot level, just kind of still taking the same location across the southwestern areas of the state back towards the southern areas of the Gulf. So for your icing concerns tomorrow, be on the focus for around just west of the Alaska Peninsula there from the Pribilofs and south. And this is going to be between 4,000 to 9,000 feet. Now here's the jet stream. It's shaping up for an amplified pattern across the state. And here's the low pressure troughing to the north. That is shifting to the north. So we're going to see a little bit of a pattern change as we head through the next few days as this amplified pattern begins to shift. looking at your 9,000 foot winds for tomorrow, low pressure is going to keep the winds rather weak across all of the bearing locations, and a stronger southerly flow all the way into the state, mainly between 20 to 25 knots, so really not that bad. Across the southeast, a very weak flow around ridging to the south there, and very similar pattern at the 3,000 foot level. So just summing all this up, the southerly flow, light flow across the state, the turbulence are going to be confined to the southwest and just to the south of the southeast. Now in just a moment, we'll be back with your marine forecast.
Welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service, and joining us today, two more people to talk about the augmented reality sandbox. It's Alana Valaji. She's a University of Alaska Fairbanks mechanical engineering student, helped design and work on the details to make this new type of sandbox there. Thanks for joining us, Alana. Thanks. And Courtney Breest, she's the outreach coordinator for AKwx, which is the experimental program to stimulate competitive research. It's a program funded nationally by the National Science Foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Alana, tell us about how you changed and adapted this version of the augmented reality sandbox. It's a really cool tool.
So Gina approached us with 3 goals for this new version of the sandbox. They wanted it to be compact in a light system that could travel around the state. They wanted it to be child-oriented, so we designed the sandbox to have 3 different levels.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. You can have younger children, you can have high school kids. I guess I should say high school teenagers.
Sure.
And then we also designed it to be more marketable, user-friendly, so that this could be seen eventually in classrooms all over the place, all over the state.
Okay. And you had a big hand in this, but this was a team approach, right?
Definitely. It was a really good experience for myself, for George Stevens, who we'll see later.
One of our hand models today. Yeah.
For 2 other members who aren't here today, Cody Klingman and Austin Hunt. And it was just a really good learning experience all around.
Very good. And this is something that is part of your learning experience as well, so you get to check a box in your education.
Yeah,
right?
it's a requirement for seniors of mechanical engineering at University of Alaska Fairbanks.
Very good. Very good. Well, it is a wonderfully inquisitive tool, fun to play with, and I hope to get my hands in the sand here in just a little bit. But it's also part of a bigger program, something that we were talking about a moment ago, AKwx, and that's what Courtney is here to tell us more about. What is AKwx and why do you need a sandbox?
Well, AKwx, as you mentioned, is a national program. We're funded nationally, but we're actually located statewide. We're at UAF, we're at UAA, we're in Southeast at UAS. And she mentioned, you know, taking the sandbox as an educational tool, and that's where I'm an outreach coordinator for the South Central test case.
Okay.
Our focus is on the Kenai watershed, and we are really interested in using these tools like the sandbox to interact with the students down there and get them interested in STEM and also communicate the research findings that we've been having throughout the state.
Okay. And one of those, as George and Eric are kind of changing the contours for us there from UAF to maybe something that resembles a little bit of something more of the Kenai watershed, which is one of your focuses for the study, right? And specifically looking at some of the changes there and how that impacts people and also the salmon.
Yes, it is all of our research is social and environmental.
Okay.
So we have social scientists working hand in hand with our environmental scientists. One of the things we're studying is Upper Russian Lake, and we have a researcher taking sediment cores from that lake. So one of the things we're going to use the sandbox to communicate is how the landscape changed over a long period of time, thousands of years, going from glacier, covered by glacier ice, to being filled with water. And then
that's what they're doing right now.
Exactly. So
live.
So they're moving
cool.
the water around. And then I think they've got some props over there, because we're also going to go a little bit more in depth and explain how the salmon got there.
Okay.
So using
there's
these,
the salmon.
Exactly. Oh, I think there's a few more.
Yeah, we like more salmon in Alaska. More salmon.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really taking the findings from our research grant and just trying to connect with the community and translate it in a really hands-on and exciting way, so people can, you know, interact with us as much as possible.
Well, sure. That makes the learning and the science real and quite literally in your face, rather than just some boring black and white paper that you have to read about. This is something that people can understand better because it's visual and they're touching and feeling and seeing these changes, right?
Yeah, and get them engaged. And then outreach is a huge component, and working with the younger students, and actually even, I mean, working with the UAF graduate and engineering students it's a huge part of our grant, and we really enjoy it.
Oh, it is wonderfully exciting. And so, Alana, you were telling us that this is built to travel.
Right.
And this is built to do more things than version 1. Where can this type of project go in Alaska? And what can it demonstrate?
I mean, we were hoping to eventually get to villages that were harder to reach, that you couldn't necessarily move a whole fixed instrument to, right? You need something that can pack up, fit in your truck bed. I mean, one of the most attractive parts of this project is that this was going to be something that was used past our graduation point. You know, this is going to be something that lives in the state for years.
Right, right. Well, it looks like you're well on your way with that. So what are, give me another example. What else can this show us? We've talked about the Kenai River watershed. What's the coolest thing that you've played in the sand with? What's your idea?
Well, I definitely enjoy the props, but we also like kind of building up a giant mound, and if you put some water behind it, you can make a little runway, I guess, and you know, demonstrate the effects of the hydrology by just putting up a dam and letting it all pour right down. And so that could, I think you mentioned it earlier, you could even demonstrate the effects of a tsunami.
Right.
Or something along those lines.
So it's not just topography, but it's also hydrology and coastal surge mapping and some of the coastal changes that we're seeing here in Alaska, and seeing what the smaller changes in the sandbox might do to kind of a real effect of a slosh or a push of water up on the coast. Tsunami inundation mapping, or even glacial dam release, as some has been demonstrated before. So wow, that's just an impressive thing. That it seems like the possibilities are nearly endless with this, and probably even more ideas that are popping up in your head too.
Yeah, as we speak.
Very cool. All right. Well, if folks want to get more information about AKwx, you guys are online. You're on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. AKwx, right? AKwx, Alaska AKwx, that is. And again, you guys are funded by the National Science Foundation, so more to come from that, and a longer-term study there. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. Congratulations on your hard work there. This is really fun. And for now, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with this edition of Alaska Weather Facts, and I'm going to go play in the sandbox there. We'll see you next time.
All right, welcome back to the show, and we're going to start off with your ice edge across the area today. We're seeing no change in the ice edge, actually, and looking towards the Bristol Bay area, that looks like there has been no changes as well, but fact is that we really can't see through all of those thick clouds out there, so stay tuned for updates in this region, as they might be a little bit more melted than what is appearing on this map. Now heading to the southeastern areas, forecast for tomorrow, fairly light between 10 to 20 knots across the entire area, mainly a northerly flow until you head towards the southern areas, where it becomes more east to northeast. As we head into your day on Friday, we're going to see a change in the weather pattern, stronger winds, higher seas on this day, all out of the south to southeast direction. And then we'll see across the inner channels a little bit lighter to the north there at 10 knots. Seas will be between 2 to 5 feet. Higher seas across the outer waters will be between 7 to 10 feet. Looking at your western areas of the Gulf, Cook Inlet and Shelikof Strait, we're seeing light flow on your Thursday between 10 to 20 knots, except for a little bit of a stronger flow west of the Baranof Islands there at 25 knots, all out of the east to southeast to the south, and as you head towards the northern inlet areas in Prince William Sound, out of the northeast. Variable flow across the northern areas of the Gulf tomorrow. Seas will be between 2 to 3 feet across the Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound. Across the Gulf waters between 8 to 11 feet, and then Shelikof Strait will be a little bit smaller seas there at 4 feet. And then as we head into your day on Friday, lighter flow across much of the area between 10 to 15 knots, a stronger flow across the northern areas of the Gulf there at 30 knots, and then the flow will be primarily out of the east and southeast direction, except across the northern areas of the Cook Inlet will be out of the northeast. And then looking at your Thursday forecast for the Alaska Peninsula, we'll see between 15 to 20 knots, so lighter flow around this area tomorrow, with seas between 3 to 4 feet across the Bering and 7 to 9 feet across the Pacific. Now for your Friday forecast, a lighter flow, change of direction, north to northwest along the western areas, and then we'll see a shift in, with the east to southeast there to the east, and 2 to 4 foot seas across the Bering and 7 to 8 across the Pacific. Looking at the Aleutian chain, really a light flow activity out there between 10 to 20 knots, variable flow across the eastern areas of the Aleutians, going primarily from an east to southeast along the south there to a northerly flow across much of the chain, except just to the north of Dutch Harbor there out of the southwest direction. On your Friday, another change of wind direction, variable flow for 2 days with really between 15 to 20 knots on your Friday, not bad at all. 4 to 5 foot seas primarily until you head towards the west and the south between 7 to 10 feet. Now looking at your Thursday forecast across the west coast, we'll see stronger winds out of the north between 20 to 25 knots with a change of direction there south of Nunivak Island out of the south, and seas will be between 2 to 5 feet on both your Thursday and Friday, and a northerly flow once again. A little bit lighter speeds there near the Pribilof Islands for your Friday, and then also the southeasterly wind there south of the Nunivak Island location. And now looking at your west and northwest coast locations, lighter winds for your Thursday and Friday, 10 to 20 knots, with a northwesterly flow from the Kotzebue Sound on over to the northwest, and eastern Beaufort Sea coast is even going to see a westerly flow. On your Friday forecast, look for a change of direction along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast out of the east, but primarily a west to north flow across the area. Kotzebue Sound will be a little stronger on this day, 25 knots. To recap your forecast, for tonight, we're looking at rain and snow activity across the southwest, a large area of snow, relatively light though, for your forecast tonight. Freezing rain advisory out there for the Kuskokwim Delta up to 0.2 of an inch, and light rain shower activity across the Gulf areas, possible patchy fog across the south with fog along the north coast. As we head into your forecast tomorrow, look for a relatively dry day across the central areas with the main focus of precip across the western areas of the state. The western areas of the Bering will be seeing high pressure persisting through your Friday with a large area of rain spreading north into the southern areas of the state as we head through your Friday. So be on the lookout for precip heading into the weekend. Thanks for joining us again tonight. Have a good night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, fueling philanthropic programs and dedicated to creating educational and professional opportunities for Alaska Native people.